Baltimore has the curse of poverty. Baltimore City is the city of extremes, right?
Laundry soon.
People don't understand how truly poor the American South is.
We don't have a fridge, just a sink in our fridge.
The highest levels of poverty in America are largely concentrated in one specific region, which is
rent, mortgage, taxes, groceries, gas.
I just saw a homeless child.
Homeless people just sleeping behind dumpsters at the motels.
Had to go without eating for a few days.
When we get to a level of poverty that there is no turning back from.
When most people think of poverty, they picture unemployment or homelessness. But today, the hidden poverty crisis looks totally different that people never imagined. And you might even know people around you looks very normal, but inside, they dying. They living day to day. Their finance is not going well. They're going through turmoil. That's why America, it's a hidden poverty that nobody's talking about. And if you live in real countries or places that doesn't have a lot of job, you are in whole different problem. And if you are new on this channel, make sure you subscribe, comment, share. Let's check out this video.
As a Baltimore resident, I stand on this and I mean this as a successful person that got out of that city. Baltimore has the curse of poverty. Baltimore City is the city of extremes, right? You got Johns Hopkins Hospital. That's a $1 billion medical empire. Right around the corner, a block over is multiple abandoned houses with no grocery stores, around it. Talk to me. It's the city of poverty. Like I said, as a successful person that made it out and generations down the line, everybody I know was on Section 8. Everybody I know was on food stamps. It just is a poverty-driven city. I didn't know ball. I didn't know money. I didn't know success until I got out of that city. I don't care what nobody say. This is my opinion, my story, my life, and I'm telling y'all about it, right? Well, I want to come back on here and talk about the topic that I was talking about yesterday, because I literally was up all night just doing research, right? And I see some people in my comments and they keep saying, oh, well, it's demons everywhere, spirits everywhere. But I'm not talking about everywhere. I'm talking about my personal experience from my city where I was born and raised, where my generation has grew up at. I'm not talking about your city. You want to talk about your city, your state? You make a fucking video. I'm talking about mine. So listen, I'm talking about my own personal experience with being let free from Baltimore City. That's what I'm talking about right now, right?
I just saw a homeless child. I'm driving by a bus stop. I see an older lady with suitcases, and this 11, 12-year-old kid is hugging what I think a grandma. And I have to race to a meeting, but I see this and it just shook me. But the thing about it is, in Florida, you see it all the time. You see kids walking around with suitcases like they've been evicted by their home. They don't know where to go. You see it all the time in Florida. And then I go to this business meeting, and I was there for a long time, and I drive back past the bus stop, and they're still there. They're not begging for money. And I'm thinking, you have nowhere to go and you want to help. But as mentioned, it's you help this one person, you try to help everyone, and now you're poor because you can't help everyone. You can't give all your money away.
Budgeting will never fix poverty. I don't know why people always tell poor people, oh, just save your money. Bro, what money do they have to freaking save? If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's extremely hard to end up saving money because all your money goes to your expenses, to survive, to your food. The cost of living is too expensive and it can't even keep up with minimum wage. How do you expect people to survive off that? I agree that people should be saving money when they can if money's tight and stuff, but you can't automatically expect them to be having a whole bunch of money saved if they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's just ignorant.
Stayed in a motel last night because the heat is so bad and I'm out here walking Moki. And I've talked about this before, but if you zoomed in at the beginning of my video, there is a person sleeping behind the dumpster on a box spring in Flagstaff. This is not Phoenix, and you didn't used to see homeless people just sleeping behind dumpsters at the motels. You didn't see people lined up in the Sprout parking lot sleeping in their cars because people can't afford to live. So for all of the people that jumped on me because I decided not to celebrate on 4th of July, This is just one of the many reasons that I didn't want to celebrate this year. This city, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this. You didn't see it. I was here. So I'm devastated that our middle class is being annihilated. And you see it everywhere you go.
Laundry soon. What you gotta do when laundry's $2.50 for a wash and $2.50 for a dry, so $5 a load.
Hey, I just found out something terrible and I need to share with you guys. It turns out on Chinese social media, Red Note, because I'm still on there, there's a term going around. It's called the kill line. It's describing us Americans, specifically when we get to a level of poverty that there is no turning back from, and it's basically a death sentence. And like, they're realizing this. And the one thing that keeps hitting me is the examples they're giving are like, oh, when you're homeless and living in the sewer. And I'm like, no, it's when you live in the suburbs, you lose your job and your mortgage goes into default. Or like when you need a car to get to your like low paying job and it breaks. Okay. Just had to share this guy in my head. Like other countries understand how just absolutely fucked we are.
It is 6:52 a.m. and my day is about to begin. I had to go without eating for a few days just to get my rent in on time. If my 3-day notice expires, it's bye-bye to my housing. It's another sacrifice that I had to make because unfortunately living in poverty, I never have everything that I need all at once. Always having to pick and choose in between things. Where I work, I can walk right outside my door and get a list of 100 resources. That, by the way, I've already contacted, and there's no help. Actually met one-on-one with one on Wednesday for food and for utility assistance. I'm so sorry. We don't have the funding. Sucks to not qualify for any government assistance when my tax dollars actually goes towards that. Counting down 3-day notices like I'm trying to make the last shot before the clock runs out. What can I do but keep showing up for myself, making sacrifices until my life gets better, continuing to stay prayed up? Well, as of today, I still have my hope.
The highest levels of poverty in America are largely concentrated in one specific region, which is the South. We're talking places like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Oklahoma, Kentucky, all of which have populations where over 15% of individuals are below the poverty line. I will say I was a little bit shocked by New York because I wasn't expecting the poverty rate there to be higher than places like Texas and Florida. And then all the way on the West Coast, I know a lot of people like to complain about California and their homelessness situation and that the state is too expensive. But if you look at the poverty rates across the entirety of the West Coast, being Washington, Oregon, and California, it's still drastically lower than this middle section of the US.
People don't understand how truly poor the American South is. I moved from Tennessee to California about 4 years ago, and I'm still paying for it now. We just don't have the money to move, and so I don't really meet a lot of people from Tennessee out here. The closest I find are really people from Ohio, and so now I'm a Browns fan. But I bring that up because that's an important component in understanding the political divide. It has taken a lot for me to understand that social programs are there for me to use them because for most of my life, there was not enough to go around. I remember the first time I went to a food bank and they gave me an onion, I actually cried. Not like onion cried, but cried because it wasn't required food. It was flavor, and that was a luxury I couldn't really ever afford. And then I learned that they had like taco seasoning, and oh my God, it was amazing. But when you're used to getting by on so little, and the only security you really feel you have is the ability to make a dollar stretch, it is scary to ask for help. And you wonder who you're taking it away from. So when people take aid when they're destitute as opposed to like nearly, I think people can jump into judgment because they probably need the aid just as much as the person who received it, and they're scared it won't be there when they're long past needing it. And guys, there's enough to go around.
We don't have a fridge, just a sink in our fridge. We have to get ice mostly every day because it melts during night. Be right back. When I struggle for money, there's nothing to eat. All there is cans of vegetables. So I've been eating vegetables. There's really not enough food. If I could change anything It would be being poor.
If you do not live in the United States and you want to know how shitty it is here right now in terms of rent, mortgage, taxes, groceries, gas, childcare payments, clothing, electricity, cable. You want to see how fucked up things are actually? I have a perfect example. Recently, I had a doctor's appointment, okay, because I wanted to have my thyroid checked, and my thyroid medication was off. Nice doctor, highly recommended. I went and I saw him, and we went over all my levels, and anyways, my thyroid medication needed to be changed. This is a Boston-based facility. The total charge was $513. Okay. I was with him probably about, 20 minutes, and he basically gave me a prescription. My portion of that 513 is 307.80. So that's my responsibility that I have to pay. When I turn the back of this notice over, this is what is on the back of this notice. If I am needing to apply for any type of financial aid for this $300 bill, this is the poverty guidelines. If you are a couple of two, it's $81,000. If you are a family of four,
only in America can you still have $3 in your bank account, but owe the bank $36. See, this is a part of the poverty hustle, specifically the part where banks pretend to be helping you, but are actually mugging you with paperwork and a smile. So think about it. You go to swipe your debit card at the gas station for $7.49. You thought you had enough, but surprise, you don't. In this example, you're 72 cents short. So what does the bank do? They don't reject the charge. They pay it and charge you $35 in convenience. So now your $7.49 charge now takes on the charge of a steakhouse meal in just that short amount of time. But the kicker, rich people with millions of dollars in their account, they get overdraft protection from the bank for free. But if you're broke, that protection comes with a bill that you can't afford. But that's the system. It doesn't help you when you need it. It is a hustle. It profits off your need. It's legal robbery and a tax on being poor. And it's not just you. In 2023, banks made over $8 billion with a B dollars in overdraft fees alone. That's not a broken system, baby. It's a business model. And remember, Congress just passed something that allows the banks to put no caps on overdraft fees. Have you awakened yet?
I'm telling people, like, listen, if you born in America, the only way you cannot succeed and be poor is by choice. In America, to be poor, it's a choice. You literally have all the money in the world here. There's more than 30% of all money that exists in the world are here.
People love to say that being poor is about bad choices, but the reality is simpler and more cruel. Being poor costs more. That's called the poverty penalty. Here are 3 ways it shows up that folks rarely talk about. Number 1, time is a poverty penalty. If you're poor, everything takes longer. Lower income workers are far more likely to rely on public transportation, have longer, more unpredictable commutes, and spend more time navigating paperwork for healthcare, housing, and assistance. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, workers in the lowest income brackets spend significantly more time commuting and waiting for services than higher income workers. Unpaid time that eats directly into wages. And the Urban Institute has shown that low-income households spend dozens of extra hours per year dealing with administrative barriers just to access basic services. Time is money, and poor people are charged extra for both. Number 2, healthcare is a poverty penalty. This one kills people. Low-income Americans are more likely to delay medical care due to cost, skip prescriptions, and use emergency rooms instead of preventative care. The CDC estimates that nearly 1 in 3 adults delay or forego medical care because of the cost, and the rate is much higher for low-income workers. And here's the kicker. Preventable hospitalizations cost the U.S. over $30 billion per year, according to the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. Cost driven overwhelmingly by delayed care. You're not irresponsible, you're trapped between missing work today or collapsing later. Moving on to number 3, fees are a poverty penalty. Late fees, court fees, application fees, reinstatement fees. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, low-income households pay a disproportionate share of punitive fees, including overdraft fees, late payment penalties, and administrative charges. The CFPB found that frequent overdrafters, mostly low-income households, can pay hundreds of dollars per year just in fees, not interest. One missed deadline doesn't just cost money, it triggers a cascade. Now I'm going to throw in a housing bonus because this is the stupidest logic of it all. So, even when poor Americans manage to buy a home, they get hit with private mortgage insurance, or PMI. If you don't have a 20% down payment, they charge you a monthly insurance until you hit that 20% threshold. According to Freddie Mac, PMI costs 5.5 to 1.5% of the loan annually. That's tens of thousands of dollars over the life of a mortgage for the same house. Same neighborhood, same roof, higher price, because you started with less. Banks don't think you can afford a $1,700 payment, so they make it $2,000 instead. This basically shifts the bank's risk to other low-income borrowers. That's the poverty penalty. It's not about coffee, it's not about budgeting apps, it's certainly not about effort. It's an economy that charges you more for having less and then blames you for falling behind.
What if they've never really intended to eradicate homelessness? What if it's all just been a show? Because they're still there. They're still on the streets. They're still wandering through the neighborhoods of our communities. They're still sleeping on the sidewalks, in their makeshift tents comprised of tarps and shopping carts. And every year at this time, I know in the local communities that I live in, they start these programs to hand out tarps and blankets and coats to all these people that are just always there year after year, all across this country. Hundreds of thousands of people, children, who experience homelessness every year. Tens of thousands of veterans who served their country. And instead of them being in a warm house sitting next to a fire with their grandchildren, they're sleeping under a shopping cart. And their family has deserted them. They have no family. Maybe this has always been what it's about. Maybe they have always been exploited and used by those who have everything as a deterrent for the rest of us, as a reminder that, you don't want to end up like these people, right?
You physically can't tell me that life is better in the South, okay? And it's not about money, it's about 90 other things that also are an issue, okay? To start, poverty rates. Look at where high poverty rates are concentrated in the South. Child poverty rates, again, in the South. Socioeconomic opportunity. Look at that. Mind you, pockets of blue, I'll give you credit, but what is it predominantly? Red. This is a big one. Life expectancy. Look at how low it is in the South. It reaches 66.8 years in some places, while in the blue, the highest is 86.6 years of age. That's a almost 20-year difference, living in the North versus living in the South. Cognitive disability rates, again, concentrated in the South. Difficulty with independent living, again, concentrated in the South. Heart disease death rates per 100,000 people. Holy red. Holy red. Stroke death rates, okay? Oh, holy red. Okay, that's the North. Look at the stroke rates in the South. Cancer deaths. The predominant cancer clusters that exist through Appalachia and the South because of industrialization as well as bad coal mining. Diabetes. And the last one, mental distress. Appalachia, the South. Okay? Look at where people aren't mentally distressed. In the North. The only thing the South is good at is not taxing corporations at a high rate and letting corporations do whatever it wants, prioritizing the values of the corporations over bettering the people's lives.
Something the average middle-class American does not understand is how incredibly violent poverty is. I'm talking about the emotional, spiritual, and physical violence of having to work near constantly just to be able to stay in survival mode. What that does to a person, it's violent.
What's the average rent somebody's gonna have to pay here if they're not on Section 8?
For a 2-bedroom apartment, it will be $3,500.
And do you think Section 8 kind of incentivizes people to stay poor? That way they can stay inside of the brackets to get the cheap housing?
I would say so. It got to be another way. I'll say so. But however, we need Section 8 to survive. Otherwise, how can we do it? And if we make certain amount of money, a little bit of money, more money, then we don't get that support.
Yes,
and it's hard.
It's kind of like twisted because if you do well, then you're going to be paying more. But if you
That's crazy.
If you pay,
I have a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology. If I go to work, a regular job, I won't be getting any help. I could only come out here whenever I got a little time to make extra money to survive.
What's a good day of business like out here?
I'm not going to respond to that.
No, we can't do that for taxes, right? We can't do that for taxes,
No,
right?
I didn't say that.
Now, there's a reason why this lady, despite having a college degree, is working on the streets only accepting cash, and that's because of what's called the poverty trap. And you must understand this about government benefits in Section 8. They were designed to help low-income families afford housing, but there's a catch. Let's say you're a single mom in New York City making $30,000 a year, you qualify for Section 8, and maybe you're only paying $500 a month for rent while the government covers the rest. But the moment your income rises, maybe you get a raise or a better job, the system starts taking away your benefits, your rent goes up, and if you make too much money, you lose Section 8 entirely, which means if you go from making $30,000 to $45,000, you might actually not feel richer because you're actually losing money, because you'll have to pay market value for rent, making you actually poorer than you were just making $30,000 a year. So you stay poor, you keep your housing, you try to level up, and suddenly you're punished. This is why it's called the poverty trap, and politicians know that this is a way to control the people. If you make more money, you lose your benefits. They silently say, stay poor and we'll provide for you, but don't worry, we will still blame the rich for keeping you poor.
So I came on here and told everybody that they needed to clean up their house because poverty equals dirtiness, and it is one of the many ways that you can identify poverty in somebody's life if they have a dirty home or a dirty car. It is what it is. I don't care, and I'm still standing on that. But also, do y'all not realize that, first of all, it's absolutely disgusting to live in filth, but also demons show up and show out in filth? Like, demons have a smell, and they also show up, and they live in dirtiness. So you're over here trying to figure out why you fighting all these battles and these demons is because you're living where they are welcomed. Yeah. So it's time to go clean up that house. Stop trying to make people feel comfortable. I'm not going to make you feel comfortable with you living in a dirty house. Get up and clean up. There's no excuses. There's no, oh, my child's autistic and I'm sorry. Go clean up your house. Find time to be able to clean up your home.
They waited until people were already hungry and then made it harder to eat. The new Trump SNAP rules just kicked in, and they read like a manual for punishing poverty. If you're under 65 and you don't have kids, you now have to prove you work 80 hours a month just to keep food on your table. If you miss a single requirement, 3 months later, you're cut off. Veterans, homeless Americans, students, all shoved into a system that now demands proof of productivity before it gives you permission to eat. Parents used to be exempt if their kids were under 18. Now it's 14, because apparently a 15-year-old doesn't need dinner anymore. And it gets worse. Refugees and survivors of human trafficking, they just lost eligibility entirely. People who have escaped violence now have to starve in the country that they thought would save them. All while the USDA posts political rants blaming Democrats for health care for illegal aliens on its official website. 2 federal judges already ruled that cutting food aid like this is illegal. But those rules still went into effect, stripping food from millions of Americans right before the holidays. This is not about budgets. This is about cruelty, the kind that hides behind spreadsheets and calls starvation policy.
Hey, so you know how the government says that we don't have the money to pay for social programs? And they always say, who's going to pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? Well, they're lying to you. Because it would only cost $30 billion to end homelessness in America. It would only cost another $40 billion to end hunger in America. And then it would cost $70 billion for free higher education for Americans. On top of that, if we added another $100 billion, we could end the majority of hunger in the entire world. You want to take a guess at how much money we've given the blue and white country this year? $380 billion. We've given them almost double what it would take to give every American a roof over their head, food in their belly, and higher education for everybody. And do you want to know why politicians say, oh, we can't afford to take care of our Americans, but we can't afford to give the blue and white country money? It's because our politicians are all in the pocket of a foreign nation. They tell you that we can't afford that, but in fact, we can afford it. We've always been able to afford it. They just lie to you. They get us all focused on trans bathrooms, or they get us focused on vaccines, or they get us focused on culture war things to distract us from the reality of just looking at the numbers and going, oh, we can't afford this. It's actually super easy to afford to solve basically every problem in our society. But no, it's more important that a foreign nation that's the size of like North Carolina gets way more money to solve their problems for their society, for their citizens, but not for ours. Our homeless veterans, they gotta stay on the street. Sorry, the blue and white country needs money. So anyway, the next time you hear a politician say we can't afford it, just know they're lying. They're lying. Thank you all so much for watching, and I appreciate your face.